Welcome, friends, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Optimal Health Program. We're here to chat with you today, and we love your questions. And, of course, if you'd like to call in, 888-420-9272. Very happy to announce that we are engaged with LFA here on Rumble, and excited to be on this wonderful stream that allows us to reach so many people. Frankie, we hit 115,000 last Saturday.
Yeah, the all-day stream.
The all-day stream, 115,000 people watched the program, which is thrilling to me. Love to be able to chat with people, get the word out, tell them how to eat right, exercise, fine-tune their health, talk about anti-aging medicine, stem cell therapy, vitamin correction, how we can make a specific custom vitamin pack for you based on your blood test and your medical concerns. A lot of great information we're going to disseminate today. We have some great studies to review. Not to forget our friends at YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, all the other wonderful platforms as well. So very happy to be here. A lot of people have been emailing the website, which we're thankful for. A lot of great questions. And it's amazing to me, and I've been doing this 37 years, a physician for 39 years, but we used to have people call and ask questions when I did my radio programs, or people would email the website, and the questions were somewhat basic. And, why should I take vitamins? What does vitamin D do? What does vitamin C do? And now the questions are super thorough. People are actually reading and looking at literature. They're sending me articles, which I love. And it's engagement that we never had before, on the prior radio. And I was doing radio for 35 years. So here for you to answer your questions. I love doing this. I'm so happy to be able to do this. So let's talk a little bit about a few different things. The protocols that I use and I create are based upon learning everything we can about your body. And for some people that haven't heard about my practice, I've been doing this, as I say, for 37 years. It's a comprehensive medical nutritional approach. So we're looking at your vitamin, mineral, hormone levels, absorption, digestion, immune response, inflammatory markers, cardiac risk factors. We're testing for a wide range of things. Epstein-Barr, cytomegalovirus, Lyme disease, heavy metals, extremely important to test for because metals will damage every part of your body. And in all the years of testing, both blood and urine, blood testing is important to see what metals have recently come in that haven't been stored yet, but urine's more of a reflection of what you've been exposed to and maybe have been storing over time. We capture a lot of this information, and metals will damage your body in any shape or form. They can damage your heart and cause heart failure. They can damage your pancreas, and some people may be becoming diabetic because of damage to the cells that make insulin. We know that heavy metals are a major part of Parkinson's disease and MS and dementia and Alzheimer's disease. So I go to the nth degree to test and learn everything we can about your body. And then within that second visit, we review everything. For many people, they come into the office to get handouts when we do the second visit. Other people might want to do it on telehealth over the phone. And we put together recommendations for protocols. Could be intravenous vitamin therapy, could be chelation therapy to help to remove metals. But with all patients, we'll put together a perfect vitamin recommendation for them. What that means is that overwhelmingly people take vitamins but don't know exactly what to take or what they're doing or combinations or milligram dose, and they don't check their blood. They don't really know if they're hitting the nail on the head. So my approach has always been evaluating your vitamin levels right off the bat, talking to you about your diet, even testing for food allergies, see what we need to take out of your diet. And then we put together vitamins based upon that. And then within a month, retest to make sure your vitamins and any abnormals on your initial blood test have improved or are better. Most recently, we put together a protocol where I'm going to have a little recipe sheet and put things into your morning pack for vitamins and your evening pack. So if a person's got cardiac issues, we may add more CoQ10 in the morning and may some more CoQ10 in the evening. We may add more magnesium if they're deficient, or potassium, or if they have high blood pressure and we need to raise up the magnesium to dilate the smooth muscle around the blood vessels, or with asthmatics, enhance the dilation of your airways because of correcting magnesium levels. So I can put individual things into those packs based upon your testing and your condition. So it makes it far greater and more specific and custom to you to do that. And then again, within the month of being on these, then we can determine if we recheck your blood, if everything is perfect. It's not only blood testing we're looking at for vitamin levels. We're looking at homocysteine, which is an important correlation with plaque in your blood vessels. So high homocysteine can cause plaque. Correcting your B vitamins, B6, B12, folate, B12 methylfolate, can help to lower homocysteine and take that one, plaque promoter out of the picture. If we're looking at blood sugar, we want to see what C-peptide levels are. That's your production of insulin. Or fructosamine, how much sugars are binding to proteins. So we can get secondary and tertiary testing to look at exactly what your body's doing. So it is by far the most thorough evaluation you could do. When we make recommendations, of course, as I mentioned, correcting your vitamins tailored to you, intravenous vitamin therapy, allergy techniques, removing allergens, using allergy treatment for inhalants and things that are environmentals. Of course, we do some PRP for people that have some mild damage into muscle, ligaments, or tendons. And overwhelmingly, for all the degenerative disorders, I do stem cell therapy. We're taking your own stem cells from your body. It takes about 1.5 minutes to extract them from your crest of your ilium, which is that bone that your belt sits on. You can feel that on the side and go backward until it stops at a little crest, and that's where we extract. It takes 1.5 minutes to do that, spin it for a half hour, and then put the stem cells back into the joint to create repair, intravenous to go to all your organs, intravenous and nebulizer if you have bad lungs, or intravenous and nasal for the brain and neurologic disorders, including traumatic brain injury. A lot of great videos on the website that can show you patients who've had it done. drcalapai.com is the website, drcalapai.com. Garden City office is 516-794-0404. So you can call the office at any time. So, we try to engage with people and teach them as much as humanly possible. Also give them options beyond just taking medication for things to be able to strengthen your body and deal with the causes of problems as opposed to just trying to change symptoms. So that's sort of in a long-winded nutshell is what my practice is like and what it's about. So now we'll take your questions and your calls. We love to hear from you. The phone number 888-420-9272 if you'd like to call and ask your question.
We have some articles we want to start with. People are just joining in. They're saying hello, hello.
Thank you.
And
hello,
to the
hello.
LFA audience. We are live right now. We did, obviously the weekends, we're running a lot of replays and things like that. But this right now, this is Saturday. This is 2:43 Eastern Standard Time. We are live. So
EST, that's right.
That number's live.
So a great article that I referred to about stem cell therapy for people that have heart attack. So most people don't know what the cellular ramifications are when you have a heart attack. People hear about a heart attack. They probably understand that some of the muscle in the heart will die if it's not getting its oxygen, vitamins, minerals, and hormones, and that's typically what happens. In many cases, it occurs with blockage or a clot, and the area that loses the nutrients and the oxygen, those cells damage, broken down, and die. But the inflammatory cascade that occurs with that makes things worse. So there's a term called cardiac remodeling. There's a term that describes the inflammation that ensues after that damage. And there are no medications that change that damaging, remodeling, inflammatory mechanism, but stem cell therapy does. And this is a great study talking about this through Science Direct and a couple of other great medical journals, that the remodeling and the cardiac dysfunction is changed once stem cell therapy is created, because you're taking your own cells. Those cells have the ability to become any other cell in your body. They can become heart, lung, liver, kidney, pancreas, brain, eye, joint, etc. And in doing an intravenous therapy with stem, they'll migrate to the areas of damage and degeneration. That's what they're attracted to, and become brand new cells of that tissue. So for people that have had heart attack, there's repair that occurs. For people that have low ejection fraction or heart failure over time, we can see the ejection fraction increase over the course of time doing stem cell therapy, because you're putting new cells in which enhance cardiac function and ability. So this is a great concept, and we've found this over the course of many years. to be terrific to repair organ damage and dysfunction. So we love the fact that your own cells can be used to repair yourself. Another great study on stem cell therapy talks about traumatic brain injury. We had a wonderful interview a few months ago with a gentleman that I treated a few years ago, probably 6 or 7 years ago now, who was blown up in a vehicle in Afghanistan. And for those individuals, that you could try to imagine what it's like to be in an enclosed environment and for an explosion to occur that just rattles you around constantly. And the coup and contra coup effect of damaging your brain and rattling your brain inside your skull is a very severe mechanism. And most of the guys that are exposed to that, many of them don't make it. Those that do don't really have much ability or function. The gentleman that I treated was unable to really do anything, couldn't get back to armed service, armed forces, couldn't work. He was having difficulty at home, and he had all sorts of issues with anger and such. As we did the stem cell treatment intravenously and then did some of the nasal droplet where we're putting it into the nose as you lay back on the table with your chin pointed towards your ceiling, over the course of about 10, 15 minutes after we were done, he said his headaches were going away and his neck pain went away. And within the next day or so, his headaches were gone and progressively better and better and better week to week. Probably 6 to 8 months later, and I would keep in touch with him because all the patients that we treat, we try to have a chat or a telehealth chat every month. He decided he wanted to go to law school. And I was blown away initially. I'm like, really? I said, you're doing that well? Your memory's back, your focus, your mood, everything was back. He was running again, going to the gym, and he graduated law school. And now we work together because he's getting other veterans that have had traumatic brain injury, because this is one of the things that we're looking to work with, and getting coverage for them through some of the agencies that are raising funds for them. So we're working really hard at doing this, and we're getting some terrific results. So this is another terrific study. It talks about mesenchymal stem cells, which are your bone marrow cells, helping to dramatically improve brain function. Over 50 million people worldwide suffer from traumatic brain injury, and usually as the injury occurs, they don't regain their ability and their function. So being able to put the stem cells back in where they go to the area, become brand new brain cells, therefore making neurotransmitters, can make the world of difference to these individuals. So we're working on that diligently. Once again, phone lines are open, 888-420-9272, if you'd like to call in and ask a question.
We got a question from Rumble.
Our Rumblers are here.
The Rumbles.
They're in the house.
Oh, the Rumblers are always in the house. A lot of vets with TBI also struggle with PTSD. Does stem cell therapy help with the emotional and mental trauma
Absolutely.
too?
So you can't really separate emotional and psychological and psychiatric and mood and any of the comorbidities from an injury to the brain, because once the brain is injured, your neurotransmitters either are not being made and you lose the ability to regulate and have normal thought process. Of course, the trauma to the actual tissue is there, but then the trauma from anxiety, irritability, depression, all of this is in the same bag. So it's not, you can't really separate that. So in doing that, and we've done this enough to be able to show that the gentlemen who have this traumatic brain injury, who are unfortunately at higher risk for suicide, by the way, as you put this back together and they feel better and the headaches go away and their memory and focus and concentration improve, and now their neurotransmitters are being made at a much more normal level, you start to see that go away. And sometimes it can occur over the course of a few weeks, sometimes a month or 2 months. But as you're making new brain cells, because stem cells turn into brain cells, you start to see that happen pretty directly.
I like this question, Doc.
Okay.
What's the holdup with getting stem cell therapy covered by the VA? If it works, why aren't more veterans getting access to it? Wow, Suzanne, thank you.
Very thought-provoking question. So my only intelligent answer is that the traditional realm does not like something coming in to change up their ability to do what they do. Pharmaceutical realm hates it. There may be surgeons that don't like it because if I could inject someone's knee and a person doesn't need surgery, they're losing out on a big surgical procedure. Some of those procedures are $80,000 and such. But everyone knows that in past, for many, many, many decades, veterans would go to the VA, not get great care. And some of them, and I know this occurred because I remember hearing about this on the news, a veteran died in the waiting room because it took forever to try to get to him and he had some urgent issue. You could look back at the status of some of those facilities over many years, dilapidated, run down. They were not taken care of. So it's a scenario where I think that, the people that are people that were in power before don't want to change the status quo. I think that's changing now, and we have some good inside information on that. But we know the results because we've seen it in thousands of patients, and there are over 4 million studies on stem cell therapy, even on one search engine, Scholar Google. And I think there were 7,000 or 9,000 or 10,000 clinical trials on clinicaltrials.gov just on stem cells. So the world is doing research on it. And I think that it's something that has to come to the forefront to be available, for all sorts of people because the documentation's there. I've had patients that will come in and say, I told my doctor about the stem cells, and of course I know what they're going to say. Oh, there's not enough research yet. So I'll get on the computer in front of the patient and said, 4 million studies is not enough research? There aren't 4 million studies on the drug they're giving you that might be new that came out a couple of months ago. So it's unfortunate, but I think everybody understands what happens in the traditional realm and who controls the traditional realm. It's just that we need to keep fighting to get a great therapy done for the people who need it the most.
We'll go back to that. We got a few more on that topic. Also, Rag Top 326 Rumble is asking, would Medicare cover stem cell therapy? ? How about the X39 patches? They're $100 a month, out of range for many.
Yeah, Medicare does not cover stem. The only time an insurance company might cover stem is when they do it for cancer, which is called a bone marrow transplant. But that's to the tune of a couple of $1 million where you're in the hospital for 3 weeks. They give you radiation, chemo, almost kill you with that, and then they put the stem back on board to repopulate everything. So Medicare does not cover stem, which is unfortunate. But remember what, we're up against. The traditional do not change mechanism is pervasive. I can give examples for all sorts of things, shots included. Why are there more and more and more and more shots being given, especially to children? The numbers are ridiculous. So you're dealing with an entity that doesn't want to change. They like status quo.
And same person, Ragtop, is asking, I would like to know if stem cell therapy could help rheumatoid arthritis.
Absolutely, rheumatoid arthritis. We
so hard to
see that all the time. So not only does stem cell go to an area of damage to make brand new cells in any of your areas of your body, your organs, your joints, etc. And we've done it for hair thinning and loss. We've done it for facial rejuvenation. We've done it for ED, where we do intravenous, then we inject the base of the male organ. The mechanism is your body repairing itself, so it makes all the sense in the world. When we do it for an intravenous treatment for lupus, rheumatoid, diabetes, liver, kidney, heart failure, etc., it has the capacity to shut down the inflammatory mechanism. So for those people that have lupus and rheumatoid, all of a sudden, over the course of a couple of weeks, you start to see the swelling decreasing, less aches and pains. They feel better. They can get up. They can get around. Just like a person with COPD, when you do the intravenous and a nebulizer, so they're breathing it topically to their lungs, they can walk further, and you can see the videos on the website, of course. Breathe better. They're not using their inhalers, so it can do a variety of things. So it repairs damaged tissue, and it shuts down inflammatory mechanism.
Okay, and then back to our other guy. He said, my dad's a vet with brain trauma, and we were told the VA wouldn't cover stem cells because it's not approved, but it's helping people. Who decides what gets approved and why?
So there are people at the top of the chain that make decisions on things, and I'm going to relate this to another story, but people think that an insurance company is the one that has to approve things. Well, they'll approve something to cover it or not. But remember, the more they approve, the less money that they're making in profit. So every year, the insurance companies cut out things that they cover so they can generate more money. It's just a fact. Everybody knows that. I have a good friend who works out with the Navy SEALs. And we've approached some people there, and the word that came back to me was, well, if they're active duty, they can't get it because they're active duty. And I said, well, what does that have to do with anything? So someone's making that decision at the top tier. It's hard to say or know that there's one person, but usually when some blanket statement comes out, they make that, and then everybody else follows, like little puppets under that blanket statement. So it's wrong categorically. It's not helping people the way that it could. I mean, imagine if you could help these individuals in a way that nothing else helps. It's a terrific mechanism. It works extremely well. So it should be done, but it's still being held back. And look, all over the world, every country is doing it. Every country's done research on it. But, there are certain things here that hold it back.
We got someone just saying, yeah, but it's perfect for athletes and wealthy patients, of course, not the troops. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and athletes will go out of the country to do it because they don't want anybody to know they're doing it. And that's been done for a long time. So, but the mounting literature on it is staggering. You can't deny it. It can't be denied, yet they're denying it. And they don't want to, bring that into the forefront. I'll make a little analogy. One of my friends and patients is very well associated with a gentleman who ran an NFL entity. And I asked him to talk to this gentleman and say that we'd just like to do some STEM on the men that have had concussions and improve their brain function. We know it works. We've done it. I mean, we've done it for stroke and all these other things too. So I know what will happen with people that do STEM with stroke. They'll get great results. He asked me, what did I want? I'd say, just give me a couple of guys and we'll do it and watch to see how well it works. And then we could talk about implementing it. So he gave me to another person who is in the high level, tier of that, organization. And he was an attorney, and he came back to me and said, well, the only problem that we see is that if we start endorsing it, then that makes us responsible and that we know blah, 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 and this and that. I said, oh my gosh. So here's a legal opinion that they don't want to be involved because then they're taking on some legal responsibility. I said, well, this is the stuff you got to deal with. It's just incredible.
Unbelievable. And we have a question. Do you know anything about chlorine dioxide? Chlorine dioxide.
Yeah.
They said they watched a documentary on it, repairing DNA.
I don't think that chlorine dioxide will repair DNA. I don't think that there's any double-blind, placebo-controlled, or any significant research that will absolutely document that. And when ideas come out about certain things and you have this huge statement, it has to be backed up by a ton of research. I will tell you, however, that literature and research on NAD, nicotine adenine dinucleotide, which your body has had in it your whole life since you were created, since you were born. And it's been well known scientifically that NAD works with 500 different enzyme systems. Tons of research on this dating back to the 1930s. Even Otto Warburg, a Nobel Prize researcher, was talking about NAD. You'll learn about NAD in high school chemistry or biology class, rather. But it's something that's in your body all the time, and one of its jobs is to take oxygen and make it into 36 molecules of ATP. Absolute fact. It's been known for a very long time. Another job that it has is to help to repair DNA. Another job that it has is to help to repair damage in cells and organs and mitochondria. And that's why people that do NAD, and we only use the injectable form where you do it sub-Q, in the skin of your belly with the tiniest little, like, insulin needle, people get great focus, concentration, memory, energy, etc. And so you see the result with that. That's research that's been there for a long time, and it's incontrovertible. When you don't have that basis of research behind something that's relatively new, you can't endorse it without having that kind of research. So a lot of companies are going to make product or tell you that product does this or does that, but you've got to look at the difference between potential marketing or advertisement or advertorial and medically documented fact.
So I had one misread on part of the question. So it was DMSO.
DMSO is dimethyl sulfoxide. So that's been around extensively as an anti-inflammatory, used in the veterinary realm for many, 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 many years. And remember, almost every drug that humans take, for whatever reason, has been in the veterinary realm for many years before getting into the human realm. It has good anti-inflammatory properties. It may taste funny. You smell like garlic, taste like oysters in your mouth, etc. It's not something that's going to last a week, so people might use a little cotton ball and rub it on a joint, and you might see some transient decrease in inflammation. It's not going to change your world. It's been around for a very long time. So the question is, what long-term benefit might you get from it?
Is there any? They're saying I guess this documentary they were reading, it said that it helped with like paralyzation and stroke victims, which is interesting.
DMSO, I don't think it would, because it just decreases inflammation. And how do you get it to your brain? There's no protocol for that.
Yeah, that's
with DMSO as well, like other things. How do you get it to where you want it to work? If you got a tear inside your meniscus and you put it on the outside of your knee, is it going to get all the way into your meniscus? How does it get there? Again, I need to have, fact and evidence. If you're looking at even glucosamine and chondroitin, it's supposed to help your ligaments and tendons. Well, how does it get there? Because especially if you have a damage or tear in your ligaments and tendons, how does it go from your mouth to your gut into your bloodstream? It would theoretically be diluted through a lot of your blood. And how does it bypass everything else and go right to your knee? Then once it's near your knee, how does it get into your ligament? Because there's no blood flow, big blood vessel pumping into your knee to get it there. So, and I deal with the concept of this all the time, absorption, digestion. Some people don't absorb well, so someone might take X amount of vitamin and not get the results show up in their blood because they're not absorbing well. If you look at PRP, which is taking your blood, spinning it, injecting 7 growth factors, I can put those right into your muscle where you have a tear to create repair. I know it's right there because I'm putting it there. Same thing with stem cell. If you're taking PRP and I'm injecting it into your knee, I know it's there because I'm putting it right where it needs to be. But how do you get these things orally inside the joint? I don't believe they get there. And I haven't seen result from some of these things getting to that tissue that doesn't have, blood flow, doesn't have roadways or streets or pathways,
Yes, sir. I'm with you. And just incredible. Our commenter from before, Ragtop326 with the rheumatoid question, has given us a $1 tip. They said inflammation is the culprit, also a raised C reaction protein and a certain peptide. I'm all for getting to the root cause. Thank you for your report.
Thank you very much.
With a $1 tip. We've never gotten tipped before,
$1 tip,
Doctor.
that's awesome. Now we can go out and buy an eighth of a cup of coffee.
Let's go get a steak.
How much does a cup of coffee cost now? I don't even know anymore.
Way more than that.
Yeah. So back in the 1900s.
That is incredible. Thank you.
Good.
Very
Let's
sweet.
go out for a steak dinner for $1.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
No, thank you very much for your call. Thank you for your comments. I love it all. I love the banter back and forth and all of that. So it's important, I think, to give people an idea as to about, factual and in what I've seen. And I probably, more so than any other doctor, have a good idea as to what works and what doesn't work. Because in the 37 years of doing this and seeing, I don't know how many patients at this point, maybe 50,000 or so, every fad vitamin and fad nutrient and idea that's been proposed that doesn't work, I know about because I've seen people that have tried things and they don't get the results. So I can see what works and what doesn't. Holds true for dosages of vitamins, for combinations of vitamins. So, I've talked about vitamins and all of these things and protocols with patients, up until recently, 6 days a week, forever, 35, 36 years.
We're getting people are joking, saying, we're starting a movement with the veterans. And hey,
trust me, I hope and I pray. So a little bit of insight in just before COVID, I started a foundation to try to raise money to treat wounded veterans, etc. And treated a bunch of guys that came from Florida that were referred through an insurance company. Two brothers that run a big insurance company down there. They do a lot for them. They take them on vacation. They have counselors. They do a wonderful, wonderful job for them. So I treated a bunch of those guys and had great results. And I tried to get someone to lobby. And again, I really didn't. I'm not a person that goes out and knows how to raise money, but I hired somebody to do that. And they went to Johnson & Johnson. They went to every big organization. They went all over the place. And then as COVID hit, everything got scrambled, upended. But it's amazing to me that these big corporations, once we showed them everything, were just, well, maybe, and they just were not interested in putting money to anything. And maybe it was the time, maybe it was COVID. I don't know, because we showed them the proof. We showed them everything that we could possibly show them. So this has been something I'm working on for the better part of 6 or 7 years. And now, we're getting a little movement on it, but the more people that, want to talk about this, the more that people hear about this. We've got a wonderful friend in New Jersey who's, working with us, who's helping us. So hopefully we'll have some good, we'll gain some good ground over the next couple of months. But, it's work. And we won't stop.
We won't stop. And, the Rumblers could guess who that guy in New Jersey is.
They might be able to.
I'll keep it up to you.
Yep. He's awesome.
The VA's hesitation comes from budget limits, liability fears, or just outdated thinking, ? No, I think it's
That's a pretty good comment. No, but that's definitely part of it. Definitely part of it. It's definitely part of the process. But as I say, we're going to fight, and we're going to continually fight it so that we can finally get some movement on it. But as I say, we're working on it.
Yeah, and to everyone that's watching right now, if you do check out that website, we did an incredible interview with Josh, and he kind of goes into his recovery and literally going to one day, just one visit with Dr. Chris and like how his life basically changed. That's summing it up a bit.
Completely different life.
Insane. I mean, blew my mind. I came into, me and Chris had met, just me not knowing anything of the stem cell realm. I'm just a producer and he's the doctor. And I mean, the stroke victims coming in and literally going from a wheelchair to a quad cane to walking up just basically going back to being able to
getting
walk.
Their function back, getting their life back.
It's blown my mind. And then we got someone in the chat saying the VA is controlled by pharma, just like the rest of the government.
No one will ever disagree with you on that. And for those who like the battle that's being fought, there are some terrific people battling against all this wasted money, our taxpayer money, going to all these, I got to call them criminal individuals and criminal entities, and you're talking about billions and trillions of dollars being sucked out and thrown all over the place, and I guarantee you that money's going back to the politicians, Ukraine included. So that's the biggest nightmare and scam, and they should be using some of that money to help to take care of the health of people in this country, the veterans. There's so much more that they could be using that money for, but it's all going back to those politicians that are making the most noise right now. So for the individuals in the administration that are doing their job. God bless them. We needed this, for many years.
No question. And we have a response back from Ragtop saying $1 was the only choice. I would have given $5.
I appreciate that, friend. Thank you for listening. We always want to have you call in and chat with us. We love followers.
Yes, and the phone lines are open. To be clear, phone lines are open, 888-420-9272. And what a beautiful Saturday it is here. I hope you're watching this. If you're in New York, I hope you're watching this on a laptop outside.
Yep.
Because spring has finally sprung.
It's here. Got to get outside, enjoy the day, do a little exercise, commune with nature. I have to take my dogs for a walk. Probably try to take them on the beach later on. But, dogs on the beach, when they get ecstatic and they're just running all over the place. One dog, Zeus is pretty easy to take care of because if I call him and I whistle, he'll look at me and he's cool. Delilah, on the other hand, when she gets her happy feet on, and she's a big, fast dog, it takes a little effort to get her to concentrate or to listen, but she's still a puppy. 160-pound puppy, but she's still a puppy.
It's insane. I met her recently, and I miss her already.
Yeah, she's a super sweetheart. But, she's sometimes it worries me when she gets out and about and she just loves to run. Last time I took her out, and, Zeus is going up and down the beach with her, and they jump all over each other like they're doing this wrestling thing, which I guess kids do as well, but she got up on the road and she's running all over the road. I'm like, God, no. And of course, people would stop with their car and they're out petting her, so I had to run over, sneak behind her, and put her leash on. But, she's exuberant, that's to say the least.
Yeah. I mean, would outrun me, that's for sure. Okay, we got a question. I just recently saw something about burns being helped with stem cell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that a thing?
True. Because stem cells will make brand new cells wherever there's damage. So it decreases the inflammatory mechanism of burns and all these other medical issues and makes brand new cells. So absolutely.
So topically.
Yep.
Wow.
They've used it topically for a variety of things, including burns. And there are some intravenous vitamin recommendations for burns as well, because vitamin C is an important component of collagen. So there are probably some good combined protocols that include both.
And we actually have a vet in the chat, YouTube, saying, I've been living off disability for years because of a brain injury from service. If stem cells could get me back to work, isn't that a better investment for the VA than paying me not to heal?
Absolutely, positively, without a doubt. Besides the fact, giving you ability and function and allowing you to enjoy your life as you may have done before. Absolutely. It's one of these things that unless you look at the financial mechanism that they are embroiled in, it doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make sense.
Crazy business.
So we're going to keep pushing. We'll get it done sooner or later. I just don't know when it's going to happen, but we'll get it done.
All right. What else we got? People are loving this talk. That's all I have to say. We don't. Cool. Not everything's a question. So.
Well, I'm glad people like it. Please, if you can, like, share, tell your family, your friends, subscribe if there's a subscribe mechanism there.
Yeah, and if you're watching this live on Rumble right now at 3:13, this show is on Monday and Friday as well at 12:30 every week. So that's on the Optimal Health Program. That's on YouTube, Rumble, everywhere. Podcast, your favorite podcast app, we're everywhere. So check us out Mondays through Fridays. Just wanted to shout that out in case we forget later, because that happens.
That's right. Mark it down. Put it like when I need to remind myself about something, I kind of put it in my phone, and I'll give myself a reminder. Like every Friday, I'm supposed to pay a young lady who comes and take care of the dogs a couple of days a week. She'll take them out, run them around, wash them, and I have to put a little reminder on Friday morning when I get up to, leave the money for her. Because if I am busy thinking of a million other things, I'll forget. So I tell people to put the podcast time in your phone. so you can remind yourself to listen to the podcast.
Smart man.
Okay, great medical research, medical news today, talking about a link between GERD, gastroesophageal reflux, and celiac disease. Now, for a lot of people, and a lot of doctors too, GERD, reflux, and celiac really go hand in hand. And, people just think about having a stomach problem and not looking at all the different parameters. Every time I see a patient that's got stomach issues and we get the blood work done, within that first consultation, I'll tell them, for the sake of discussion, do not eat any grains, no bread, no rice, no pasta, no oatmeal. Get all the grains out of your diet. And by the time I see you in a week to go over your blood work, I want you to tell me how you feel. Invariably, everybody says, wow, my bloating and digestion's gone. The hot burping sensation seems to be gone. For some people, they're also allergic to other things, and we'll take those foods out of the diet once we test them for allergy. But a lot of the grains and foods now are GMOs, so you may be reacting because of that. There may be chemicals in the foods and fillers and binders that, et cetera, may be causing a reaction. But then there's direct food allergy where either a blood or skin test is more accurate, that can tell us you should avoid those foods. So I've seen so many people with all stages of stomach issues, in full-blown ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. You start to change their diet, get rid of the grains, they start to feel better. And we have a wonderful video of a gentleman who had ulcerative colitis for 21 years and was afraid to really travel or go anywhere. And we'll get him on here for an interview. He's actually traveling now. But he had an accident in the car because he drove a little past where he thought he could go, and then came in, we did the stem, and within the day or two, he had a normal bowel movement, and he's been doing great ever since. So his picture changed dramatically because the inflammatory mechanism was shut down. He did have a few foods he was allergic to, of course, and we took those out of the diet, but once you go from having horrible function and a pretty significant decrease in your ability to enjoy your life, and now that reverses and you're able to do the things you want, it's a pretty big difference, especially after 21 years.
We got a question here real quick. How can I tell if my bread or pasta that I'm buying contains GMO? Are companies required to label that clearly?
I think some companies will put that on. Usually you see the opposite, GMO-free, gluten-free. So typically it's better to buy those products that are GMO-free, gluten-free, that have a list of things that are not in the product. I'm sure there are companies that will not put that on the product. So, it gets a little bit scary.
I hope for a world where if there's something like, GMOs, what do you call the oils that the
seed
oils, there should be almost like you're buying a pack of cigarettes when there's like that
a warning, yeah.
Or
the companies are too big and they buy the politicians, so they don't want to change their flow. There's a very big company that makes Roundup, and Roundup is still sold in the stores. It's still in Home Depot, and we know that it causes cancer, but that company's paid out $10 billion in fines. So are they making $100 billion selling the product? And they just continue to do it. It's amazing. People really have to be more aware and shop in a place that's got good organic food. Whole Foods, some people like Trader Joe's. Fairway used to be very good before they went out of business. But you really have to be aware of what you're eating and make sure that you don't have all this chemical stuff coming in. I love the fact that RFK Jr. wants to ban the chemicals and the dyes. This is the first person in ages, and maybe ever, who's talking about changing this. Certain manufacturers that make food in Europe, they have to pull out certain products that they've banned, but we haven't banned those things. It makes no sense. So I think finally we have some responsible people in the right positions to be able to make this difference, make this change. He says by September, he wants to have a clear-cut understanding of why the autism rates in this country are the highest in the world, 1 in 31 kids. It's insane. Of course, you don't have to think beyond much to understand what's been going on more and more and more every year and every decade with children. This is not something that you catch. This is not a genetic thing. And anybody would understand that you can't have repeated exposures to mercury, thimerosal, and aluminum, etc. And it makes no sense. They'll tell a pregnant woman not to eat fish because of the mercury exposure, yet they get shots left and right, and they'll give babies shots when they're born. Read, people, read. Read.
That's just terrifying. And then I heard that GMOs increase the inflammation, especially in corn. Is that is there truth to that, or is it hype?
Absolutely. A lot of people will react. So there's so many different ways to describe this from patients I've seen over so many years. There are people that used to be able to eat corn, or they'll get organic corn, or grow their own corn, and fine. But they'll go out and get something from a market or a store that may not have the organic, and they'll react. I can tell you many, many, many thousands of patients I've seen that can't eat bread because it kills their stomach. It gives them burning sensation, bloating, indigestion. They feel horrible. But they go to Europe and they have bread in Italy, France, Germany, any of the European countries, and they have no problem. Or they'll have pasta, no problem. Here, they can't have it unless they get the grain or the pasta from an Italian source that does not allow the GMO. But this conversation I've had thousands of times over the years, and people are just starting to realize that, yeah, the stuff that you get in Europe is a lot more pure than here. So, and I could tell you from, again, personal experience, having food over there where there's no chemicals, there's none of this other stuff, it just tastes completely different. Eggs over there are heavenly. They're not these cardboard tasting, basic, boring things. They're phenomenal. They're big and they're orangey, bright like the sun, and just different. The food's different when it is the way it's supposed to be.
Is there a difference between gluten intolerance and sensitivity to GMO wheat? Could someone be reacting more to how the grain was engineered? Yeah.
Good question. So there are people that are allergic to wheat, and there are people that are allergic to gluten and not to the wheat itself. We see that via blood and skin test. So we know, either way, you got to get rid of the food, but we know that there are some people that will skin test positive to the wheat itself and be negative on the blood test to gluten, or positive to gluten and negative to the wheat. So it can be a double whammy. It can be both. So once we have an offending food for whatever reason, just got to get rid of it. And then down the road, we may have people go out and get something that's completely organic and healthy. And then there's also grain-free bread that people can utilize. I think it's very good. There's a company online on Amazon called Julian Bakery, and they make grain-free bread, nuts and seeds, maybe some flax in it. It tastes great. It's dense bread, but it tastes great. And that's a lot better for you because it's all natural.
Another follow-up. If I stick to organic carbs like oats, rice, and whole grain bread, am I automatically avoiding GMOs, or is that not a guarantee?
Organic, you should be doing well with organic. Is anything 100%? It's hard to say. But I think if you have something that's certified organic, then it's likely going to be organic.
They get tricky. Like my wife bought some balsamic glaze, and we're eating the salad, and she gets, she has corn problems. And all of a sudden she's like, she grabs it in the back of it. It's like corn starch. It's like, why?
You got to really read the label. Remember, companies will make products cheap and easy and will keep things in it because it may be harder to get those things out of it because it's easier and cheaper to sell and they make more profit. So to buy something that's really purely organic may cost a little bit more, but if it's for your health, then obviously it's something that you want to, pursue. Read every label of everything that you eat. Every box, every can, every jar, read everything so that at least you get a better idea as to what you're consuming.
Yeah, and someone's just saying that, of course, all of the non-GMO products are way more expensive. And it's not, it's true, but that's what these companies do.
So, not to tell people what to do, but I'm going to tell people what to do. You can, and we spoke about this before, you can grow your own vegetables in your house with Garden, Gardyn. It's a device that's got a stand and it's got a couple of pillars, and you put the seeds, pods, into this. It has light that allows them to grow. It's got water, and it will grow your vegetables. And you can put 30 little pods on the thing and grow your own vegetables. So, and you could certainly do that in your garden if you have room, if you got good soil and you want to turn over the soil, maybe even compost it like all the old Italians would do. Eggshells, chicken bones. A story about chicken bones I'm not going to get into right now. I know my mom's listening. But, you could have lots of great vegetables that you grow. Again, if you can do it in the earth, in your yard, if there's open sun and no trees, etc., you can do that. There are a lot of things that you could make that are a lot safer than just buying it, haphazardly. And some people will make their own ice cream, and some people will make their own this or that, why not? Some people make their own wine. There's one story.
Please.
Now, I'm not going to name who the person is, but she's definitely listening. So years ago, I went to a guy in Glen Cove, a little old Italian man who spoke very broken English, because everybody in Glen Cove speaks broken English and are little old Italian people. But he had a little building, a little house. I guess he'd lived there, but he would sell wine, grape juice. So I didn't know what I was doing. So I bought like 7 or 8 containers, like the size of those big Home Depot pails, filled with grape juice and the yeast in it. So it was fermenting. So he told me what to do, and great. I put them in the back of my SUV, driving home a half hour or so, and now I'm breathing in all this fermented grape juice, and I guess I was catching a bit of a buzz. I felt a little loopy because I'm breathing all this stuff in, because 8 or 10 of these containers, I put them in the garage, then put them in downstairs in the basement. I followed the steps to make the wine, and I made homemade wine. So put it into bottles, and I think it was Thanksgiving. I had the whole family over, and we're sitting around and having wine. And, my family is not afraid of having wine. They would drink a lot of wine. And certainly before I ever came along, they were drinking wine. So we're about to have dinner. We're looking for someone who I will not name, who turned 95 in November. And we couldn't find her. And we know she was having a couple of glasses of the wine, as you would normally do, and a couple of glasses of regular wine is really no big deal. It's good for you. And then we went from the kitchen to the dining room into the living room, and there was this person laying on the floor with a pillow. She had finished whatever glass of wine she had, and she was taking a nap by the fireplace. So homemade wine is strong. It's a lot stronger than wine you would get anywhere else. Now, you know this person. You've met this person.
I have.
And she's the life of the party, and she's got a wonderful personality, and I hope that she's laughing as we speak.
I wish I knew that story.
But it's a funny story, so you have to be careful as you make homemade wine, because the alcohol content could be a great deal higher.
There's no government official putting a drop in and testing it out.
You're making your own thing. You do a good job of it. So, you could make your own foods and do all sorts of things. Some people, I dated a young lady a few years ago who is from Utah, and she would grow her own food, make her own spreads and nut spreads and fig spread, because she grew all this stuff. It was just like a general store. She would bring over things that was unbelievable. Macadamia nut and fig. It was a paste. You put it on your crackers. But, you could do that, and why not? I think we have to get back to people growing their own food and making their own food. Why not?
People got so used to just companies doing things for you. Here you go. Scan it and go.
Yeah.
It's like, what are we doing?
But you run the risk of being exposed to all sorts of garbage if you're getting the commercially created things. Why not do it yourself? A few years ago, something inside me, genetically, made me buy a pizza oven. So there's a pizza oven made by a company called Il Fornetto, and it's a big, beautiful pizza oven. I have it outside, and you pop open one door. It's got a glass and a thermometer on it, and there's a pizza stone and a rack. And you could take fish and soak the wood and put the fish on the wood and, mesquite flavor, whatever, and you cook that in the oven. It gets up to 500 degrees, make pizza. We would take, the 00 grain from Italy, and then just make our own dough. Or we would do cauliflower rice and make our own dough with cheese and egg. And, put whatever you want on the pizza. It's terrific. It's a lot of fun. Have your friends and family over. But you could make things, it's healthier for you.
I find this comment funny. It said, my Italian grandma gave me her old wine recipe. I made it in a plastic bucket and it tasted like vinegar, but 3 glasses in, I was singing Sinatra. Did I do it right or horribly wrong?
Okay, if you're singing Sinatra, you did it right. If you're singing anybody else that's not Italian, maybe you weren't doing it right. So yeah, vinegar just means it kind of, sometimes the wine goes beyond where it should and it kind of tastes like vinegar. So even really good wine that's not stored on its side in the right temperature, 53 degrees, sometimes that wine will go to vinegar. But you could use it as vinegar. Put it on your salad. And I like the reference to Sinatra. I mean, who doesn't? He was one of the greatest.
This one, we got a couple hilarious comments. I made homemade wine in college using Welch's grape juice and baker's yeast. It looked awful, tasted worse, but it worked. Is that technically wine, or is that just a liquid regret? I don't even.
The only thing I can say is that a very good friend of mine who owns, and we interviewed him here, Anthony Sanino from Sanino's Vineyard out in Cutchogue. I've gone out there to make wine with these guys since 2000, so 25 years of doing this, and I love his family. I brought my family out there, rented a big van, got all my family, his family, harvest day, and singing like crazy all day and all night. By taking the grapes and crushing it, you're making grape juice. And if you ever tasted the grape juice from when you just first crush it, it is so delicious. It's not funny. It's pure. It's organic. And then there's a big, thick book of yeast that you could use depending upon how you want the wine to taste, depending upon the grape. You put the yeast in, you let it sit, you let it ferment, and then you can kind of kill it off, and you put it in different barrels to gain a little oaky flavor. But you're essentially using grape juice and, yeast to allow that process to occur. The more sugar in the grape, the more alcohol you'll get in that production. So in a way, if you had store-bought grape juice and you did that chemistry experiment, yeah, you're probably making some kind of wine.
I take it back, sir.
There's so much science into this, making wine. It's amazing just to watch how they do this. And every year I've gone out to his vineyard, and I was there a few weeks ago. It's amazing to see, how the machines have grown and all the different processes, all natural. You can take tons and tons of grapes, put them in a device, it crushes them, it pulls the stems out one side. So it's kind of cool to see how this all works. And of course, we sit there and drink wine, and have a little charcuterie board while we're watching this all happen. And sometimes you have to wait a while before you have to get up and try to go drive home. But that's the way it should be. Sanino's Vineyard in Cutchogue, New York, Long Island, New York. Sannino. Wonderful family.
We may just be doing an episode on location.
We should do that.
But it won't be live probably, but we will do that.
Well, we can
think about
we'll figure something out. Go out there, do an interview. I'll wear my grape crushing outfit, wear those Italian shorts and some cool Italian shirt, and I look like a little Italian back in the days of Tuscany in the 1500s. I would do that.
I love it. And the chat seems to love it as well. They're loving it. Hilarious. We got a couple more stories. I love this. It's like show and tell over here.
Stories are great, and I love to connect with people. And I have a lot of Italian patients, of course, and a lot of Jewish patients, a lot of patients from every walk of life, every background. But I like to hear stories about what you do, what's your family like, where they grew up, where you're from, blah, 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 what it was like over there, because I love history, and I love the history of people in every different background. I have a very good friend who's Persian, and the spices and the foods that they put together are amazing combinations, stuff that I've never seen before, and I loved it, and still love it. Many years ago when I worked at a clothing store in Roosevelt Field, I became very friendly with a guy named Mark, and we became best friends, and we'd go out everywhere together. We'd hang out with 30 friends, because back then, you have 30 friends everywhere you go. And I went to his family's home one day, and they had this massive display of food all over their table. It was every kind of bagel you've ever seen, lox and sable and whitefish or chub, and it just had everything you could imagine. And I'm looking at all this because I like food more than maybe most people. And I said to myself, where was this stuff? How come I've never had any of this or heard of it? But I was 18. We'd have bagels. My dad would go to the bagel store and get some bagels and cream cheese and whatever. From that point on, I absolutely love the fish. And to this day, from that day, I had a scooped out everything bagel with whitefish in it. And I'm making this at the table and the people are watching me. I mean, I don't know whether I was right or wrong. It's just my palate needed this. So everything bagel scooped out with whitefish, then lox and an onion. And to this day, that's my favorite bagel. I won't have anything other than that because that for me is just massive flavor. So that's what we do.
I love it.
Sicilians, we try and do different things and we have our likes and sometimes our dislikes. But stories are great. I love people that tell stories.
What else we got?
888-420-9272. If you'd like to call in, you could do that. And certainly give us a text or send us some info, and we'll chat.
We just got another story. I tried making wine in my basement and totally forgot about it for 8 months. When I opened it, it fizzed like a soda. I took one sip and woke up on the couch.
Yeah, that'll happen because it's super, super, super strong. And that fizzing is the yeast still creating more of that wine and the alcohol content. So sugar and yeast is alcohol. So it could be super strong. But I love the whole thing about it. That's why I love going out to my friend's vineyard because I go out there, you see everything. He shows me this new machine. He's got a still. And we tasted a really good rosé that he made. And I'm not a real white wine drinker, but he made some really good white wine. It was relatively full-bodied because I like full-bodied wine as opposed to lightweight stuff. But he made a Petit Verdot, which was amazing, and I brought it back. And, of course, if I let anybody know I'm going out there, oh, can you give me a bottle of this? Can you give me a bottle of that? So a lot of times I'll go out there. I won't tell anybody. But everybody wants some wine. So, yeah, it's fun. I think it's great. People should do it. Do more of it.
Coming with you next time.
For sure.
All right, what do we got? People have relaxed a bit.
Another interesting article. Are eggs good or bad for cholesterol? And this is a study that's been saying what I've been saying for many years. Yeah, they're fine. You could have as many eggs as you want. The Atkins diet, where people usually had overweight and high cholesterol, where people are eating eggs and meats and, decent amount of fat, which you don't necessarily have to have tons of fat. But cut the carbs out, your body burns through the fat, the cholesterol, people lose a lot of weight. They do very well. And all the low-carb diets, beyond what Atkins did many years ago, and I think he was a genius, a brilliant guy. I was a very nice guy. I always got along really well with him. We used to go to his office the first Monday of every month to have meetings with this organization we had. People can eat all the eggs they want, and you never see their cholesterol go up. But people start eating carbs and grains and sugars, and all of a sudden you're blocking your body from burning the cholesterol and fat as a primary fuel, and then you get into trouble. And sugar is horrendous. It's horrible. We talk about glycation. I've mentioned this the past few times on the programs, how sugar can damage your proteins and fats, damage your blood vessels, your nerves. They interfere with protein creation, dysfunction within protein creation, oxidative stress, inflammatory mechanisms, autoimmune, the list goes on and on. So you want to keep your carbs as tight as humanly possible. On your blood test, these should be between 70 and 90. You get above 126 on a fasting blood sugar, you're diabetic. And I see so many people, maybe more so now than ever before, that are pre-diabetic. But I tell a pre-diabetic, if diabetic is 6.5 and you look at a 3-month average and you're a 5.9 or 6, that means sometimes you're higher than 6 and sometimes you're lower than 6. If you're 6.4, you may be diabetic most of the time and sometimes you're just below that. So you have to address it. Low carb, exercise, correct vitamins, minerals, hormones. Change the picture before it becomes overwhelming. I had a lovely lady in today who's been coming to the office for years and has been doing pretty well. Her most recent blood test, her fasting blood sugar I think, was 137, and her A1C was 9.8. It's supposed to be 5. So she's full-on diabetic. Her other doctor told her a couple of months ago that she's pre-diabetic. And not pre-diabetic. She's full-on diabetic, and now we're working on changing the picture. We laid the whole idea out for her, going to put vitamins together for her. The tailored vitamins, custom for her. We're going to give her extra combinations of chromium polynicotinate and some of the things that help to stabilize sugar, berberine, whatever. Low-carb diet. She's going to exercise every day, half hour to 45 minutes, nonstop cardio. Maybe she do some kickboxing, ride the bike, whatever, all the different things you can do. And we're going to set her up for stem cells because we're going to make the stem cells go intravenous to the pancreas and set up brand new pancreatic cells that make insulin. So, I love the fact that I have all these different weapons to be able to put into play to be able to create the result.
Wild.
Good stuff. I've said that for years. Good stuff, good stuff. I read something about Cary Grant. He used to say good stuff all the time.
It's a good sign.
Wow. I was wondering, because we kind of almost look very, very similar. If you squint your eyes and it's a cloudy day and it's dark outside. No. It was a wish.
I'll take, yeah.
Wishful thinking. Boy, if I could just look like that. Okay, phone lines are open, 888-420-9272. Certainly give us a call at the office, 516-794-0404. If as well you'd like, go to the website, drcalapai.com. We have a lot of people here that have emailed us, and we'll go through a couple of these while we're waiting for another call or two. So Louise has a history of psoriasis at her elbows and on the back area of her ear. It's weird that we have patients that have psoriasis, and we always test for allergy. We find out food allergy can correlate with that, maybe some issues with environmentals, trees, grasses, weeds, molds. We've also had people that had fungal organisms that we've picked up because they had fungal toenails. And we put them on nutrients and combinations to work with the fungal toenails, take the allergy foods out of the diet, work with the whole picture, and all of a sudden, the psoriasis clears up. So psoriasis may be contributed to by multiple things. That's just what the take-home message would be. So that would be the best way to evaluate a person with psoriasis. Paul, he's got arthritis of his hip, and the doctor did an x-ray, and he wants to know what would be better, stem or PRP. Well, the first thing is, and anybody who's ever listened to me ramble on about MRIs, is that you got to get an MRI done. Because the MRI will show you ligament, tendon, cartilage, labrum, everything. And the x-ray just shows you outline of the bones. So we need to see everything. And there's a great video on the website of a patient with arthritis of the hip. We found out to be having a labral tear. We did stem cells. Wonderful result. 3 months later, he started training jiu-jitsu again because he was a big jiu-jitsu guy, which, by the way, is really bad for your joints. Anyway. But was able to win competition in his class. And he's well into his late 50s or his 60s.
So real quick question from the chat. My uncle had psoriasis and never drank a day in his life. What causes it for non-drinkers?
Well, it could be a fungal inflammation. And sugar from alcohol can cause, fungal issues. We've seen that before. I'm not saying it's the only thing, but I would certainly test for allergy via blood and skin, because skin's more accurate than blood. But blood's a good screening test. Look at that. Look at hormones. Look at vitamins. Cover the gamut. Unfortunately, for psoriasis and skin disorders, doctors, will write for a cream or a cortisone, which can decrease inflammation, but it doesn't mean it's changing the cause of the problem. So if you're taking a cream and you're not getting any better, it's because it's not hitting it, not hitting the nail on the head. So if you take out the foods that we think are correlated, or if you just take out foods when we see you might have allergy, a lot of different things can improve.
What else we got?
Another email from the website. Daryl has a rash on his leg. Seems to be worse depending upon what he eats. So could easily be food allergy. And some people have a rash that may be caused by a fungus. And if you eat carb, you might see that the rash is getting worse because fungal organisms love to thrive on carbohydrates. Strange, but true. You have to think outside of the box. So yes, it's nice to have one foot firmly planted inside the box of rational medical evaluation and testing and all the things that, are provable, like the big blood tests we do. But to have the other foot moving around outside the box to look at other things that doctors would look at makes a big difference. Makes a lot of sense. So.
Questions from YouTube. Can we assume stem cells help the autistic brain? Question mark.
We've seen that. There's literature on that. And we've treated a couple of autistic kids that are usually 15 or 16 or so. That's when we opt to be able to do that. And we've seen some good results with that. We've also done a variety of things where we're using glutathione, sometimes intravenously, sometimes chelation to pull metals. But there's a lot to be said. And, you could look at, and there are probably a good number of doctors now, many more so than ever before, that are doing more specialty evaluations for autistic kids. And they're all looking at the heavy metal mechanism.
And are you a fan of the carnivore diet?
So the idea of carnivore is interesting. It goes a little bit beyond, the Atkins, high meat, high fat, low carb diet, but the carnivore is lots of meat, low fat. I think that people, who doesn't like some eggs in the morning, and they could have eggs, and they could have chicken or turkey or fish, or, I couldn't imagine having steak for every meal. I mean, I like a good steak, but not for every meal. So if you're doing mostly proteins and meats and you're getting a result where you're burning sugar, burning fat, your cholesterol's coming down, you feel good. Some people describe it's getting rid of some of their, quote, autoimmune symptoms, which would have to be proven based upon testing. I've heard these people talk about it online, but I would need to see that they had an autoimmune issue and see how it may be changing, if so. I don't recommend extremes of diet. I think that we do a diet based upon your body and what the blood test shows us. So there's no name for the diet. If you're a patient Joe, then it's Joe's diet. If you're patient Susan, it's Susan's diet. So the people that opt to do carnivore, if they want, as long as their vitamin levels are good and they're taking vitamins, then for a period of time it might be okay. I just don't know that, it's something that you want to do all the time forever. I think vegetables are good for you and roughage is good for you, et cetera. So I'm a big fan of low-carb diet. I've been talking about that for my entire career. So you can kind of mix and match and do what works for you as long as your numbers are good on your blood test. It's got to be based upon, and I don't think any diet, and people change their diet around and do all sorts of different things. Some will go on a fast, some will go on celery juice, and I think you got to learn about your body first, make sure your vitamins are good, and then start to change your diet and see what works for you. Because at least you have that good basis of medical knowledge.
All right, let's see. Chat slowed down a bit. How we doing? Any questions? Chat? No callers, but a lot of questions today. 888-420-9272.
I think we are in a realm of a society that just loves to text and type because it's quick and easy, and our brains are thinking fast and we're doing a lot of different things at once, and it's less, calling. I know people that only want to text that don't want to talk. Yet I know some people who only want to talk and don't want to text, and sometimes they want to talk too much, and I'd rather them text. But, we've moved a little bit away from being a more personalized conversation. And there are a lot of ways to look at this. And, I've said this before. When we were kids and there were 30 kids around the single block that I lived on, we was hung out every day. We played every sport you could. Now, you'll never hear that or see that. Yeah, there are kids in school that are playing sports and, doing all sorts of clubs at school. But you don't have this everyday thing of getting together with that group and integrating with girls and guys and doing stuff together and going to Friendly's on your bicycle because you wanted to go get ice cream or something. It's just that whole thing that, we went through in our youth was amazing. And you look back at it and you look at other people and say, wow, I feel bad that they didn't go through that they didn't have a best friend or three best friends. And why am I not your best friend? Because blah, 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 blah. And people were battling to be your best friend. I think it was a great time years ago. We didn't really understand it or realize it until you see things change. It'd be nice to be able to get back to that organic, family and neighborhood mechanism where people are just doing everything together. And I have some patients. I spoke to a patient the other day, lovely woman. She's got a few kids, and she and her husband and their kids, and they do very well. They've got a big house, and they have all the kids of the neighborhood come over and do stuff at their house because they can. They've got a pool, they've got a trampoline, they have everything for kids to possibly do. But their idea is, I love having the kids home, and I love having the friends over, and I'll cook for 20 kids. She didn't care about that. She goes, I want them to have that connection where they're doing stuff together, and they're not isolated on their phone or their iPad or their tablet. I thought about that. I'm like, it's really good. It's a great idea. And then some of the other parents will do the same thing. Another parent has a beach house down in Atlantic Beach. Then all the kids go there. I said, it's the same thing that we were exposed to. It couldn't be better.
Yeah, and Ragtop's still in the chat saying there's something.
He's still there?
He's still there. What's
wow.
up? He, she, whoever you are. There's something to be said for neighborhood camaraderie. That's
absolutely. So one of the guys in our neighborhood, John, who was a couple years older than me, and we had probably, 30 kids. He and two other guys were 2 years older, and they kind of picked the teams we used to play with, and stickball, kickball, basketball, baseball, football, kill the guy with the ball, stoop ball, everything we played. I know that we have teams, and it was great. I speak to him now and then, and we joke around on the phone. I have to get this picture for you. It's on my phone somewhere. So he sent me a picture of our hockey team, a street hockey team. Now, we were this ragtag street hockey team. We bought our hockey sticks, and we had Ranger jerseys. But the goalie had foam rubber pads that we kind of made and would wrap duct tape around them because, to go out and buy goalie pads back in the day was a lot of money. We had I think it was Milek, gloves that you could buy in Herman's or one of those sporting goods places. And we made hockey nets out of 2x4s and fishing net for my friend's father, who was a big fisherman back in Sicily. So, hey, we made what we had to made. And then if we had 10 guys or 12 guys, and then 4 blocks over was another group that they had their team and another, every different way you look, there were different teams. We had a league. It was the greatest thing ever.
That's awesome.
So he sent me a picture that he found of us, sort of sitting there, and I was kind of kneeling down in front, and I've showed everybody that picture. Like, who are these people? I said, you don't recognize the guy in the front? I'm like, no. Of course, my hair a little different back then. A lot of hair. And Mo from the Three Stooges?
Yes.
I don't know why, but
I got to see
it was the kind of Mo haircut, Talk about self-deprecating. I got to show you the picture. It's in my phone somewhere. I'll show you afterwards. And then maybe we'll put it up online so people can see it. But yeah, we had so much fun. Like, the world was fun, and summer lasted so long because we just had so many things to do. And we loved it. But it was an amazing, I would never trade that upbringing for anything. I would never in a million years. It was the best time. And of course, when you hear the parents.
Far away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you hear the parents and, you're ready, you had to be in at a certain time, because Dad was just getting home from work, and you knew Mom made some amazing meal. We'd run like crazy back to the house. But it's a good time. Good stuff. Okay.
This is a good one.
Looks like we're down towards the end of the program.
Shout out.
Thank
Rumble.
you all for listening today. Thank you for all your calls. Rumble, you're awesome. LFA, you're awesome. Super awesome. We hope that the numbers will break all records overnight. We'll be closely watching. Garden City office, 516-794-0404. Website, drcalapai.com, drcalapai.com. Give us a call. We'd love to help you out. And thank you for your emails, too. So we'll be back here live on Monday at 12:30.
And don't forget, we have a program every Monday and Friday on the Optimal Health Program YouTube. Go there, go to the Rumble, subscribe, like it all, so you can see us when it's not the weekend, because we're here.
We're always
waiting
here
for you.
Cool. Thank you. Bye-bye, friends. God bless you all.